great human being. Journey to the end of suffering. Journey you've never been before. Nirvana. The journey of the magnificent human being. Gothama Buddha. The Awakened One. Chapter 1. The Prince of Kapilawastupura. In the golden age of Tambapani, nowadays known as Sri Lanka, where the emerald forests met the azure waters of the Indian Ocean, the kingdom of Kapilawastupura in Dambadiva, also known as Rajagala, thrived under the reign of King Suddhodana. He was a ruler of great wisdom and valor, deeply beloved by his people. His queen Maya was known throughout the land as a paragon of virtue and compassion, often visiting the villages to care for the sick and poor. Together, they symbolized the ideal of royal responsibility. The palace at Kapilawastupura stood as a testament to the grandeur of the kingdom. With its intricately carved ivory gates, shimmering pools reflecting the starlit sky, and gardens abundant with blooming jasmine, it seemed as though the gods themselves had crafted it. Yet, amidst all its splendor, there was one thing missing: a child to carry forth the lineage of the royal family. The mystical dream. One auspicious full moon night, as the cool breeze rustled the sal trees, Queen Maya had a dream unlike any other. She found herself transported to the sacred heights of a golden mountain, where an ethereal white elephant, gleaming like a pearl, descended from the heavens. The elephant came from the north, circled her 3 times, and entered her south side. A profound sense of peace washed over her as she awoke. When the king summoned the royal sages to interpret the dream, their faces glowed with reverence. "Your Majesty," they said, "this is no ordinary dream. The queen will bear a child of unmatched greatness. He will either become a Chakravarti, a universal monarch, or renounce the world to become a Buddha, a supreme teacher of truth." The king, filled with joy, resolved to prepare the kingdom for the arrival of this extraordinary being. The birth of Siddhartha. On the full moon of Vesak, Queen Maya felt the time had come. Following tradition, she started traveling to Devudahanawara, where her parents were living, but stopped along the way at the Lumbini Sal Gardens, which were made in honor of her grandmother. As she rested beneath one of these trees, she held onto one of the tree branches. The air grew still, as though the entire island awaited the arrival of the child. With no pain, only joy, she gave birth to a son. Legends tell that the newborn took 7 steps, and mystical flowers which looked like lotuses magically sprang from the earth beneath his feet. Standing on the 7th flower, he pointed his right hand index finger and pointed to the sky. He then declared, "I am going to be the foremost in the world. I am going to be the chief in the world. I am going to be the highest in the world. This is my last birth. There is now no more becoming." The heavens rained blossoms, and a gentle light illuminated the land. The whole world was shaken and was felt across the entire universe. The boy was named Siddhartha, meaning the one who brings kindness to the world. Astrologers and sages confirmed the earlier prophecy. This child was destined for unparalleled greatness. After 7 days of the birth of Siddhartha, Queen Maya passed away. A sheltered childhood. King Suddhodana, while overjoyed at his son's birth, was troubled by the possibility that Siddhartha might renounce royal life. Determined to prevent this, the king vowed to shield him from any encounter with suffering, like old age, sickness, death, and the ascetic. The palace in Kapilawastupura became a gilded cage, with every corner filled with beauty, music, and laughter. The finest tutors were summoned to teach Siddhartha art, science, sword handling, archery, and many more skills, ensuring he would grow into a capable ruler. Despite these efforts, Siddhartha's natural compassion and wisdom shone through. As a boy, he often wandered into the palace gardens, marveling at the simplicity of life. The prince's marriage. As Siddhartha became 16 years old, the king sought to anchor him further to worldly life. A grand tournament was arranged to display the prince's prowess. Warriors and princes from across the land gathered in Kapilawastupura, but none could match Siddhartha's skill in archery and horsemanship. Among those who witnessed his victory was Yasodhara, the daughter of a noble chieftain. Her grace and intelligence captivated Siddhartha, and soon they were wed in a ceremony that brought joy to the entire kingdom. For a time, it seemed the king's plan had succeeded, as Siddhartha immersed himself in his new life as a husband. Time went by very happily. Chapter 2. The Four Sights. The sun rose gently over the sprawling city of Kapilawastupura, its golden rays piercing through the morning mist and illuminating the lotus ponds where bees buzzed lazily among the flowers. Yet within the opulent confines of the palace, Prince Siddhartha stirred restlessly. Though his life was filled with abundance, musicians playing sweet melodies, dancers performing beneath the moonlit sky, and attendants ensuring his every comfort, his heart felt a void he could not explain. For years, Siddhartha had felt drawn to the world beyond the palace walls. He often stood on the marble balconies, gazing at the vibrant city below, his mind wandering. What was life like for the farmers who toiled in the fields or the merchants who sold their wares in the bustling marketplace? The king, ever protective of his son, forbade him from leaving the palace, insisting that the world outside was harsh and unworthy of the prince's attention. But Siddhartha's curiosity had grown into a gnawing need. One day, unable to contain it any longer, he approached his trusted charioteer, Channa. "Channa," Siddhartha said, his voice firm yet tinged with wonder, "I must see the world beyond these gates. Prepare the royal chariot." Channa hesitated, fearing the king's wrath, but he could not refuse the prince. Together, they set out in the gilded chariot, the gates of the palace creaking open for the first time in Siddhartha's life. The first sight, old age. The streets of Kapilawastupura were alive with the sounds of daily life. Children laughing, hawkers shouting, and the rhythmic clatter of wheels on stone. Siddhartha marveled at the vibrant energy, his eyes drinking in the sights and sounds. As the chariot moved through the bustling market, Siddhartha's gaze fell upon a man sitting by the roadside. His back was hunched, his hair white as ash, and his hands trembled as he tried to lift a small bowl of rice. The man's face bore deep wrinkles, and his eyes were clouded with age. "Channa," Siddhartha asked, his brow furrowed, "what is wrong with this man?" "My lord," Channa replied gently, "this man is old. All beings, as they age, lose their strength and beauty. Time spares no one." The prince fell silent, a weight settling in his heart. Could this fate befall everyone, even kings and queens? He had never seen old age within the palace, where everyone appeared youthful and vibrant. For the first time, Siddhartha grasped the inevitability of aging and the impermanence of life. They headed back to the palace to get ready for the next day, the second sight, sickness. As they left the palace, the prince's thoughts lingered on the old man. But his musings were interrupted by a loud, gut-wrenching cough. Ahead, a man lay on a straw mat outside his hut, his body pale and emaciated. His chest heaved as he struggled to breathe, and his face twisted in pain. "What is happening to him?" Siddhartha asked, his voice tinged with alarm. "This man is sick, my lord," Jana explained. "Illness strikes without warning. It spares neither the strong nor the weak, the rich nor the poor." Siddhartha's heart sank further. The palace had shielded him from such sights, but now he realized that sickness was an inescapable part of life. How fragile the human body was, and how helpless it became in the face of disease. They once again headed back to the palace. The third sight, death. On the next day, the chariot continued its journey, the prince now silent and contemplative. Soon they came across a somber procession. A group of villagers walked slowly, carrying a body draped in white cloth on a wooden bier. The air was heavy with the scent of incense, and the mourners' faces were wet with tears. "Jana," Siddhartha asked, his voice trembling, "what is this?" "My lord," Jana replied, "this is a funeral. The man being carried has died. All beings, no matter how loved or powerful, must one day face death." The words struck Siddhartha like a thunderbolt. Death, this final, inescapable end, was something he had never truly considered. He watched as the procession passed, the wails of the mourners echoing in his ears. If death was inevitable, what was the purpose of life? They headed back to the palace slowly. The fourth sight, the ascetic. On the next day, the chariot continued its journey. Shaken by the sights of old age, sickness, and death, Siddhartha did not like to continue, so he asked Jana to turn back. But as they approached the palace gates, the prince saw one more figure that stopped him in his tracks. It was a man dressed in simple robes, walking barefoot along the dusty road. His face was serene, his gaze steady, and his posture upright and calm. Despite the hardships of the world, he seemed untroubled, as though he had found a deeper truth. "Who is this man?" Siddhartha asked, a note of hope returning to his voice. "He is an ascetic, my lord," Jana explained. "He has renounced worldly life to seek the truth and liberation from suffering." The sight of the ascetic filled Siddhartha with awe. For the first time, he glimpsed the possibility of a life beyond the endless cycle of suffering. Perhaps there was a way to transcend old age, sickness, and death. Perhaps there was a path to true peace. The birth of a resolve. As the chariot rolled back into the palace, Siddhartha was no longer the same. The luxuries that once delighted him now seemed hollow. The laughter of the courtiers and the beauty of the gardens could not mask the truths he had seen. That night, Siddhartha sat alone in the moonlit courtyard, his thoughts racing. He could not ignore the suffering of the world, nor could he return to the life of indulgence within the palace. A seed had been planted in his heart, the seed of renunciation. He whispered to himself, "There must be a way to end this suffering. I must find it." With that resolve, the prince unknowingly took the first step on his journey toward enlightenment.